space. Obviously, our sponsor from Supermicro. I'm just loving the conversations about data. So just, I'll start by introducing myself and then I'll introduce the rest of the crew. So I'm Lisa Yu, General Partner of 99 VC. We're an early stage AI and data fund. So love the conversations about data because that is really the backbone of the AI industry. And the quality of the data is so important when you train the models, and how do we apply that to actual use cases. So so we focus on pre-seed and seed stage startups, and we're based in San Francisco. So I'll just pass the mic around and everyone can introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Ryan Schoenfeld, co-founder and CEO of Highwatch, and we build software for security departments.
It's like a talking stick. That would happen to me. That would happen to me. I'm Sarah Zurell. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Sells Brands. We're the home of Chinese Laundry, Dirty Laundry, CL by Laundry, and 42 Gold, Los Angeles-based legacy footwear company that has been around for 53 years. So excited to have this conversation.
Hello, everybody. Once again. Hello, everybody. Once again, Carl Brown, General Manager of Supermicro. Happy to be here.
Hey gang, Billy Z. I'm the CEO of Tensor Group and also co-founder of a stealth startup. Happy to be here, and yeah.
Great. Well, so we'll have a two-part kind of Q&A. First I wanted to ask the panelists a set of questions about like the industry at large, and then I'll do a little popcorn questions at the end about specific company questions, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So first, obviously, everyone here probably wants to know, how is your company using AI for your business, and what are some tools that just have really been a game changer for you?
Let's start. So again, we're in the security space, and AI is interesting for us because our customer base is relatively non-technical. A lot of them don't understand the technology, but they know they're being pushed by the organizations to adopt AI to drive efficiency or reduce people. And the security world is a very human capital intensive space, right? Security guards and operators and things like that. And so we're leveraging it both in using it to automate functions like report writing and sort of these mundane, repetitive tasks that are getting done. But we're also using it for automating alarm verification and validation, which in the security world, 98 to 99% of alarms that come in are false. But in the retail world, you've got to check and make sure, did somebody break into a store? Was there a slip and fall? Is somebody did break in and the glass is broken, we've got to get somebody out to come secure the organization. And so from a pure play security standpoint, those are the ways that we're using AI to drive automation. The question is now, how do we use all of those security sensors and devices, and there was a question earlier about this, in the store to drive other operational and business efficiencies?
So 53 years of data, and a lot of data. And to Henry's point, I was brought in to really modernize the organization. I was the first C-suite hire in 22 years. And so I was unable to really access any data to very little. And so getting the infrastructure in place to be able to know exactly where we stand was kind of like the very first thing that we started to do. And so, as you can imagine, pushing through AI solutions is where we're at now. And so we're at a really elementary standpoint where I'm just happy I was able to get Copilot on Microsoft approved for us to improve efficiency, and and improving things like using Canva on the design side, and then I'm looking ahead to, there's so many ways that we can use AI to optimize, but it's the current moment we're really limited, but excited to talk about what we might have coming up later.
All right, Carl Brown. Supermicro's in an enviable position because we get to build the stuff that runs the stuff. And so we're building it as well as consuming. So how AI is impacting our business, especially in retail, and I don't want to trump the other questions that might be coming, but it's a huge market. TAM for us. So building the right solutions for the right segment at the right time is always important because the transformation of the data center is happening, and right now the big one is going from air-cooled to liquid-cooled. So some of my favorite tools is the liquid-cooled solutions that we are powering and transforming the industry by, because it means more efficiency and more power and more, sustainability, which is a big thing for everybody's, or a big thing that's on everybody's mind, is efficiency for compute. Now, from the internal perspective, we get an opportunity to transform. Not only were we going through a digital transformation, but now we're going through a digital plus, AI revolution of using some of the tools and some of the initiatives that Supermicro is taking a look at right now is Supermicro GPT, right? I think that's the easiest way to consume AI today is through making Gen AI real through a chatbot, or through an internet, a GPT type of solution that uses your own private data and makes that data smarter. So every lawyer, attorney at the office has their GPT, sales has their own, marketing has their own, and it's becoming an amoeba. So it's really cool to watch us power these transformations and then consume it.
That's great.
That was awesome. So Tensor Group, teeny tiny company. Most of the time it's just me. I will hire up on project based, and then that's about it. So as a single person who wears every single hat, I have used all of the GPTs. I tried them all. I give them all my $20 every once in a while to see which ones where. As far as coding, which is where I spend a lot of my time, Claude is the clear winner. GitHub Copilot is another amazing tool. Of course, for image generation, Midjourney is still the hands down winner, although all of them create good enough images for things. I haven't used Canva. That doesn't typically fall into my wheelhouse, although I've started to, and yes, that's amazing. All the big ones. So all the LLMs, the image. So that's, and it has enabled me to do amazing things. What were the other questions? I'm sorry.
Oh, I can ask
Just
more questions.
tools. Okay.
Tools and how it's impact your ability to build.
Yeah.
It sounds like you went from building in months to weeks.
Yeah.
It's really shortened your development life cycle.
So I can give a fun story if I have a minute. Okay, so I recently had two main clients, and in September they both just dried up unexpectedly for completely independent reasons, and that happens. It sucked that it happened both at the same time, so I thought, okay, I know it's gonna take 2 or 3 months before I get another client. What do I wanna do with that? And so I have worked in and with video games. I am strongest as a back-end engineer, a systems architect, a software developer for back-end systems, APIs, low-level stuff. Don't really have experience with any of the other aspects of a video game, but I thought, all right, wonder if I can develop a video game. So I just put out to it. I had ChatGPT help me with ideation of what I was gonna build and what would be reasonable. Then, of course, I knew roughly how to architect it. I had it help me fill in the gaps. I had Claude and ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot help me to code along the way. I had the asset image generation through, as I said, various tools. They all helped me with the testing. And then even deploying the game, which I actually did finish in 3 months, on Google Play Store and on the Apple App Store, that is really complex stuff. And they make you jump through so many hoops. And they use such esoteric and weird and conflicting language. So yeah, using all these tools, they're all a moving target, and they often get stuff wrong. They hallucinate, which means, they just make stuff up. And often, if you're developing software or talking about an API or just any particular thing, they have, access to multiple versions of documentation. They may or may not give you the most recent one. So again, things are likely to be incorrect. But yeah, overall, it allowed me to get this game developed, which I don't think I would have been able to do on my own in any less than a year. And I did it in about 3 months.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that's super fast to build a game. I mean, people build games that takes like 18 months to 2 years sometimes. So kudos to you. You speak about the LLMs like they are like rebellious children that like to go off on a tangent. You gotta whip them back into line with what you were really trying to prompt them to do.
well, it's a combo. So yes, there is sort of some truth to that. They're kind of magic. If we have an extra minute or two somewhere in here, I'd love to just talk about the history of AI and sort of how we got here, but I'll save that potentially for the end.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
just again with communication and make sure we're all on the same page.
definitely. Well, for anyone that's into open source, highly recommend Klein. And there's also a ton of models on Hugging Face. Just always make sure you check the sources so that they're credible and trustworthy. You don't want to download anything that you might regret. Yeah. So another couple interesting things, right? How are you distinguishing between AI hype versus what is going to actually bring business value? Obviously, some people might have the time to carousel and try 20 different AI tools, but sometimes as a business, it's like you've got some objectives. You really want to just bring some tools or people along to do the transformation. So kind of what is that process, especially for like a 53-year-old company? What would be kind of the starting point of how do you even evaluate tools? You know, for example, there might be some people here in the room that want to know, like, how do you even begin?
I guess that's at me. How do I assess tools? I generally try them first before I pass them to my team. And, I know ChatGPT, we can say whatever we want about it. It's so helpful for copy, at least for me. However, I found that my social media coordinator got very, very reliant on it, and I felt like she wasn't actually reading what was being said. And so I did have to kind of call on the carpet a little bit on it, because I think that there's a dangerous line, because you don't want all of your copy, right, or all of your emails to start to sound like robots. And so making sure that the human element is still there is really important when talking to your brand audience. And so I go through and try them myself before I pass them to the team. And we don't have a large tech team at Sells Brands. At one point, I was leading IT when we were doing a digital transformation from our ERP from an ABS. We were moving to ABS, but we were on AS400, and it was nothing was in the cloud. It was horrible. That's what I walked into. The server was going down. It was terrible. But I digress. In that, there's not a lot of support, and so I'm trying to commit to just trying one new tool a month.
Yeah.
To figure out and just commit to that and carve out the time, because there's so much room for efficiency, and if we can use these tools to be efficient, then there's more time to do the human stuff. It's like, how can we work, smarter instead of harder?
Totally. Well, I have a question for Highwatch. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say Claude, much better writer than ChatGPT in terms of sounding like a person and the ability to tweak the prompt to like really get the voice of what you're trying to say.
I haven't tried Claude, so I cut
And drop it. Check
ChatGPT.
it
I was
out.
like, oh, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, much better.
I'm gonna try that.
Great.
But
Pro tip.
for us, focusing on security for a second, and then you can go into the broader business. But when you're building AI for an enterprise, the stakes are really high. Like when Billy talks about hallucinations, you can't have a hallucination when you're trying to determine like, did somebody break into a facility, and is this a real alarm or false alarm? And so like the guardrails around what you're building become so important. And for our typical buyer who's not technical, they've been sold hype, BS, AI for a long time for things that weren't even close to actually being AI. And understanding also within the AI realm, like, is something computer vision based or is it LLM based, and how does it work and what does it do? And so we actually start by like really limiting what the AI is actually allowed to do, even though technically it's way more capable. But you start really small and build the trust with what it's doing, and then you start expanding the capabilities over time, because all of a sudden stakeholders in different departments are starting to hear about it, and they're like, oh shit, can we get that? Or can it do this? Or they're starting to, get the idea fairies. And then on the build time, like iterating from where you start becomes so much quicker when you're using this new tech. But I think really like starting small and building trust is probably the most important thing.
So kind of like adding bumper rails to a bowling lane so that the ball doesn't go off rails.
I like bumpers when I bowl.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, especially for enterprise use cases, right? I think someone quoted on Twitter that whoever solves the hallucination problem will win the enterprise game, and that's still, of course, an ongoing problem to solve.
I think prompt engineering is like one of the most interesting new job titles in the space. I mean, you talk about AI and jobs, like people who are engineers specifically for writing prompts, because that part is so important in using this tech. Unbelievable skill set.
Yeah, they call it casting a spell, right? So being able to be hyper efficient and direct in asking what you want, so that when you put the spell into the LLM, it actually nets the magic that you want. I want to go back to Billy, because you sounded like you had a thing about how do we get here. So how do we get here?
Okay, so first, there's so much cool stuff. Before we even do that, I want to spend 1 minute on we talked about the hype versus whatever. You brought up a really good point that there's more than just the pitfall of something being overhyped. So there is the situation where AIs can end up giving you text or copy, sorry, I used the wrong word there, copy that ends up sounding like AI wrote it. And we all start to get it, it's either too verbose or something. And so I think that's something, even in addition to the hype, that's like, okay, these are new tools and we need to know how to use them. And then with prompt engineering, it's the same. There's a tool, the interface happens to be English, but it's not like talking to a person. And you need to know how to ask a question and then how to follow up in a way. So I totally lost track of what your question was.
And then how do we get here?
Yeah, how do we get here? Okay, so, oh my gosh, AI. So this is fun. And I apologize, this is probably gonna have a lot of gaps, largely apocryphal, you name it. But people have been talking about artificial intelligence for millennia. I mean, the ancient Greeks had the automata that they had in their minds at least. 1956, the term artificial intelligence was coined by James McCarthy, I forget. And then people played with it with computers. It was hard. We basically had rules-based, where it said, a lot of conditional stuff, if then, if this, if person. So not really that exciting, a lot of maintenance, complex, not maintainable. And then in 2006, Netflix came along, and I think that they were the ones who inspired it. They said, hey, we have this recommender algorithm, and if somebody can make our recommender algorithm 10% better, we'll give you $1 million. So a lot of people got excited about that, a lot of academics, and in 2009, a team came along and they used machine learning techniques to actually win the prize. It still didn't really do that much until 2012. There was another similar thing called AlexNet. Yes, and AlexNet was used deep learning, which is another kind of stuff that I won't go into too much, but yeah, that was really the start. And what we had were classification engines, things that could say, hot dog or not a hot dog, basically, and recommendations. Autocomplete is really just a recommendation, right? We all have that on our phones. I suggest this letter or this word for the next thing. And those evolved. I sort of think about, there was that old claymation with Frosty the Snowman, and when they put the hat on its head, it began to dance around. And I feel like somehow there's a magic with LLMs that we don't necessarily completely understand how they become magic, but they do in some ways. They really are just these autocompletes, but that's it. And so we've now got these LLMs that are autocompletes with a little bit of magic. And then of course the next step is this agents, which is something that is an LLM controlling other LLMs, and you can give it the big picture, and it will, break things down and do prompt engineering and sort of management. And so that's kind of where we are. And again, apologies if I got anything wrong or missed stuff, but I mean, that's kind of the current state of AI.
No, that was a very fun analogy. Thank you so much for the insights. So Carl, what have you been seeing is changing rapidly in AI, especially, in the physical AI space? You've got auto checkouts, you've got, digital humans. So kind of walk us through your vision of what are you anticipating, 5 or 10 years from now? How will the retail landscape look different because of AI?
I have to quote Luke, 5, 10 years is like light years. I can only think about 18 months because in 12 months we've had a DeepSeek moment, right? So for retail, I mean, not only just this, all the segments are getting, permeated and hit by AI. So let's take life sciences and drug discovery. COVID vaccines and vaccines were made basically, using AI, right? And then now you have drugs that are pinpoint accurate that will solve cancer, solve diabetes, solve, some of these really lifelong, ailments. Retail specifically, you can see how Amazon has, did the, the stores where you don't have to, you just walk in, take what you need, and you walk out. The transformation of that is having what you need when you need it. It's digital money. It's, the recommendation of when a storm hits, shovels being, deployed, never running out of things, and it's a state of nirvana, right?
Sounds like a season of abundance.
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an abundant lifestyle.
It exists to make our lives much easier, right? And in the healthcare paradigm, it exists to help us live longer, right? And so think about that with retail. You're going to be able to do things a lot easier. You're
Faster
going to
too.
faster, yeah, the speed, and then everybody's going to know who you are, right? Good or bad, right? And what you bought last week. So this is a big way in which it's actually changing. You heard all about it, with Rand talking about it, Mark talking about it. The powerful part of this is the compute that's going to be needed to make those use cases, outcomes real. And we're working on things today that compute engines that are, I was at NVIDIA yesterday, right? Talking about products that haven't even been released to the general public yet. And these products people want already, and they're 10 times more powerful than what we're seeing today. So when I look at the compute performance and things that are really happening to enable this nirvana, it's happening very quickly. And so 3 years, 1 year, it's a new reality that'll make the world a better place. I really think it's the art of the possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, this leads us to our last popcorn question, which is, if you could have one AI feature tomorrow that doesn't exist yet, what would it be?
Oh, I'm not starting.
Popcorn style.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I
Just
just
pick
one.
one.
I suck at favorites. Just
I'll start. I'll give you time.
do.
And maybe this exists, so if it does and I haven't discovered it in my monthly journey of discovering AI tools to help my retail business, is that I would love there to be a magic tool that could predict exactly what dress shoes people are gonna buy and what they're gonna look like and to continue to predict the fashion trends ahead of time, and then to have the perfect product mix and to know exactly what to buy so we never overbuy, and then to get it into everybody's hands. So just solve all my business problems.
Yes. That's great.
And all right, that teed me up. And so I
There
don't
you
know if Meta World Peace is still here, but the name inspired me. So what I would love is an AI that will inspire us, incentivize us, and then show us how to just all get along.
Aww.
That's great. That's a good one.
I'll be the downer. Mine's gonna be more Minority Report, but like predictive modeling and analytics around crime trends specific to security.
Keep us all safe, please.
Yeah, and then that can have the analogous predictive of shopping patterns.
While they're shopping for free stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
Inco?
$5 discount is.
Oh, you know, I mean, I kind of, I'm throwing I just, you know, I'm looking at this data center landscape and this huge transformation that needs to happen with liquid. So in a perfect world, in the future, I wish that there would be, you know, an AI that can fully design a completely liquid data center with all the compute, you know, power needed to, you know, generate natural resources, and things that are going to, you know,
Abundance of energy.
destroy our planet, right? Like, so if we can renew and, you know, kind of use something that is renewable in a data center, and it gets the kind of power that we need to do all those great outcomes that you're talking about, especially the shoes. Yeah. So that power needs to be created, and, you know, in that landscape, having AI to help would be great.
Amazing. All right. Cheers for the better world. Okay, we're going to open it up to any questions from the audience.
There's no mic, so you're gonna have to speak up. Yeah. I'll try to speak up.
Okay.
So first of all, disclaimer, I'm the second person with cybersecurity background in the room, so my questions will be pessimistic. The question is, I see a lot of people excited about AI in retail. So, but is the customer ready for it to show up? So if you remember Amazon cashierless stores, they were not quite a success. So is consumer ready?
Consumer or the business?
Consumer, for business to offer AI features.
I think generally, yes, the consumer is more ready than the businesses to actually offer it. You know, I think we didn't talk about privacy, but I think that's a big consideration, especially in a retail environment, and you're talking about cameras and sensors and biometrics, and but I think most consumers have kind of resigned that there's really no such thing as privacy anymore, and people think that there is, but really, like, from the business's perspective, AI governance and policies, and especially in the US, you know, put aside global companies for now, there's no national standard for the use of AI or the use of any biometrics. It's not even state by state. Sometimes it's cities and counties and municipalities. And so when you're looking at deploying that type of tech globally as an organization, there's almost not a good answer on how to do that. But I don't think, you know, consumer behavior-wise, like we talked about Uniqlo earlier, like I don't think anybody's not walking in there because they're using that technology. Most people probably think it's cool or don't understand it.
That's such a great point. So I was just thinking of Uniqlo also. I haven't been in there. Is it obvious when you walk in? Do they have a sign or something that says, "Hey, you are being recorded and your information is being used"?
Yes, they do.
It does. Okay. Interesting. And did you consider walking out when you read that?
No, I did a dance.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
And then he got that text.
Yes, you had a question?
So to build on that point, on the consumer expectations and what they're going to accept, how do you see the natural march of time and the aging out of the folks in this room, and, you know, the new generations coming in? I know I certainly, when I was a kid, I had a different sort of world around privacy. The first time companies really started getting data was when I got my Ralph's card, right? In the loyalty program. So is some of this going to take care of itself because the kids all grow up knowing there is no privacy? What are your thoughts?
I don't know that the kids
And then
grow
how
up
do we
thinking
adapt?
or knowing that there's no privacy. I think that newer generations prefer convenience over anything else, and I think that that's ultimately what wins.
I want to jump in and just add a thing too. You go.
No, you go.
I actually do have a background in security too, and I did do penetration testing. His background is far more deep than mine. But one of the things that I do think kids these days do have no expectation of privacy. Where it gets interesting is where that starts to turn into potential security, where all of a sudden now we're starting, without getting too political, things are getting uncomfortable for people in certain groups, and in certain groups very uncomfortable, and some companies are being influenced or influential that have these people's data. As far as what the next steps go, hopefully things cool down. But if they don't, companies will know stuff about me that could potentially get me ending up in a camp. And I know that's extreme, and hopefully that's never gonna be a possibility, but that's when all of a sudden privacy and security start to turn interesting, we'll say.
So we may not see this natural march of the future generations coming and people aging up if greater societal factors move the needle around the need for and the expectations of privacy.
I think the pendulum will start swinging back the other way. I think people will demand more privacy and they'll be willing to pay for it. And that's why Web3 is also really important, because you can now opt in, you can get paid for your data. So it's really shifting the paradigm. So it is kind of like moving like the Titanic. It's just going to be a slow steer, but I do think that the pendulum has swung so far that the next generation is just kind of fed up, and they'll be willing to do the paywall to protect their privacy.
Sir.
Well, AI in retail, here's a good question for you. You go into Beverly Hills, for lease, for lease, for lease, for lease, for lease. Westwood, for lease, for lease, for lease. Santa Monica, for lease, for lease, for lease. I know that's e-commerce that did it, on the internet did it. How is AI going to help the person that has a small shop, a small business? I know it's great for Target and CVS and places like that, but let's say I want to open up a dress shop. Is there any kind of solution that's AI going to help me on that? And what can you say about how it might help resurrect the small businesses?
This is literally what I worked on for a couple of years at Warner Bros. From 2018 and 2019 when I was the director of emerging technology there. I was exploring the future of retail, and I wasn't interested, I wasn't interested in logistics and supply chain management and all that stuff. I thought, what is the future of retail beyond that? And where our research ended was retail spaces can become a place where people go to immerse themselves in your IP. Not necessarily to walk home with a thing, right? If you have IP of some sort, you've got a brand, you've got a style, you've got, a comic book. People want to go and immerse themselves in your IP, and you give them that opportunity. You fill that store with sensors that will then give them an interactive, personalized experience that they can also then potentially even order from. These are potential uses for the spaces that then can also build community as well. So there is a lot of opportunity. I don't know if people are ready for it. Business owners. They're close, but I really do expect and hope to see that happen.
I think it's actually easier. I think it's actually easier for the small businesses who don't have all the bureaucracy and governance of a Walmart or an Amazon. And I would think of AI more as a force multiplier.
What about the expense of it?
It's a fraction of the cost when you look at it across the business and the force multiplier that a team may have needed Amazon-sized logistics for
Can you
before.
state a specific example? I just opened a dress shop or something,
Well, that's your world, dress shops.
Give me an example of how a small business that could help them or revitalize them.
Well, how about a small business that wants to get into e-commerce as well, right? And the ability to run a logistics operation without the people load of a full logistics operation leveraging tech?
Yeah, I'll give a Reformation as an example. It's a sustainable dress company or clothing company. They actually changed over their spaces, their retail locations, to hold less inventory, but have iPads in all of their dressing rooms that allow you to, basically, they've got samples essentially on hand. There's less people in the store. They only allow a certain number of people in the store, and they do provide a really lovely experience. And sometimes you'll see a line around, like down the street when they do new product drops. So they're able to staff less, they're able to hold less inventory, they're doing pre-order for items and before they drop them. And I think to kind of go back to this idea around the way the new generation is consuming, or Gen Z and Gen Alpha is consuming those consumer insights, you're seeing them make choices that say, I don't want you to know everything about me, by the influx in the resurgence of stationery coming back, because they're writing handwritten notes, by them picking up actual paper books and reading them instead of doing it on a Kindle, by gathering at malls, which you're starting to see, the places where people gather. And so I agree, this pendulum is swinging and has swung, but the kids are writing handwritten notes and reading books and going to the mall. So you can already see the shift that's happening. So, you know, the for lease issue is also a Los Angeles problem. I won't go into politics, but it's a Los Angeles problem also. But there are ways to do it, and it's absolutely through immersive shopping experience. It's absolutely through building community. And you do that first by building that community online, and on TikTok, and on different platforms, and live shopping experiences. And you then take that live shopping experience and you put it into a physical experience that makes it so that people want to go and be a part of your brand, identify with your brand, and be in that space. And now you can get a smaller space, because you don't have to have every item from your collection present.
One last question.
Okay, we'll take one more question from the lady in the back.
A question, and I know I'm not on the panel, but I used to work in trend forecasting, and so if you think about SMB versus enterprise, all of the business challenges are the same. They're just bigger. So if you're applying AI as a small business owner, let's say one shop or three shops, you can use it at every stage of the business, right? Like whether it's helping you do marketing at scale that you would have to hire multiple people or an agency for, whether it's scouting new locations based on foot traffic of the area. Like there's multiple applications, and it's at, to your point, a fraction of the cost of hiring individuals for each one of those roles. And in reality, immersive and community building, you can see that in action within Santa Monica. We can go down to Mudwater on Lincoln, or no, Main Street, and that has built a community of people who go there for their products, but really to go there and have it as an office. And realistically, like there's nothing stopping somebody who wants to open a dress shop from taking those same applications that you would see and applying them in a smaller scale. And they don't need to have a huge, Supermicro, a huge amount of servers to do this, right? Because they have one shop.
They just have to have one really big fat server.
It says Supermicro on it.
There's still servers for that, they're just in like AWS.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Great insights.